According to the automotive group Cox, the average new vehicle transaction price in the United States as of last month was $47,244. And according to LendingTree, the average car payment for a new vehicle hit a record high of $738 per month as of Q4 2023. These days, the ability to buy a new car affordably seemingly is becoming a privilege for just the top 10%. If we follow the best practices for affordability whenever buying a new car, most people don't make nearly enough money to actually afford them. So in this video, I want to go over what salary you actually need to afford a new car, some affordability rules as well, and suggest a few options if you're looking to buy a new car in the next 1 or 2 years without breaking the bank. First, let me give you some context on what car dealerships are doing, because they know as well as anyone out there that car affordability is at its lowest in quite a while. A lot of car dealers out there will try to convince you that you can afford much more of a car than your budget allows by stretching out the vehicle's loan term. These days, the average auto loan term is now 68 months across the board, and I think that's pretty crazy because when I was younger and I was watching TV, all the ads would usually advertise 36 months or 48 months. 68 months is really out there. That's close to 6 years, and that boggles my mind because the average loan term is 68 months, which means that there are going to be some people out there that inevitably have a 72-month or an 84-month car term. Car loan interest rates are also getting way higher. The average APR for a new car is 5.64% at the best credit score level and 7 to 10% at the non-prime and the prime level. High interest rates paired with really long loan terms means that you're going to be paying way more overall for your car at the end of the day. Auto loans use simple interest. So pretend you get a new car at the average new car payment of $738 per month. $600 of that payment might actually go towards paying off the principal. That's just the total amount that you actually owe on the car itself. But a portion of that payment, let's say it's $138 of that $738 payment, will go towards interest, which is the cost of you borrowing the money for the life of the loan. You can see by this table, based on a $35,000 car at a 9% interest rate, how your monthly payments and total interest will vary. As your auto loan term gets longer, your total interest costs can really add up, as evidenced by the 72-month and 84-month terms, to the point where your loan might be for $35,000, but the total interest paid is $10,424. That means your total loan will cost you over $45,000 when you intended it to maybe only cost you $35,000. That's crazy too. So according to a popular car buying rule, the 24/10 rule, it suggests that you should finance a car for no more than 4 years. That's the 4 of that 24/10. The 20, by the way, means that it suggests that you should put 20% down on a car, and the 10 just refers to the fact that your total monthly transportation costs should be less than 10% of your gross monthly income. So how realistic is this rule for the average person earning the average wage, especially with the 4-year car loan suggestion? Let's actually crunch some numbers real quick on a 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander. Before we do that though, make sure to subscribe to my free newsletter. It's called Hump Days, and that's where we go over business and economic news twice per week. And if you really like the videos that we put out on this channel, you'll probably also enjoy it in written format delivered to your inbox on Wednesdays and Sundays. The link for that will be right down below, and again, it's completely free. Okay, so let's say in this hypothetical of the Toyota 2024 Grand Highlander Limited, we're able to get this car out of the door for the MSRP price of $48,110. Well, if we were abiding by the 24/10 rule for car affordability, that means we need to put 20% down on this car. That's $9,622 before we even think about the payments. According to recent Federal Reserve data as of 2022 and 2023, can you guess how much the median account balance was of all savings and checking accounts for the average American? If you said 20,000, you were gravely mistaken. If you said 10,000, you were gravely mistaken. In fact, the median amount is $8,000. That includes checking and savings accounts combined, and that even still seems really high to me because I just saw some articles the other day that said more than half of Americans don't even have $500 in their savings account. So if you actually take a look at the data a little bit further, you can actually see that the balances are being dragged upwards by the older age cohorts in this survey data. People younger, such as those in the 35 to 44 age range, or those people just younger than 35, they actually have less money than the median amount of $8,000. The median bank account balance for them is $7,500 and $5,400 respectively. So right then and there, most people will probably not be able to afford even the down payment on this 2024 Grand Highlander, but let's just keep going with this exercise just to show you and illustrate how crazy this gets. Assuming you're able to put 20% down on this car and finance the car for no more than 4 years, your monthly payment is going to be $898 per month. That's assuming that you have an interest rate of 5.64%, which was again for someone with perfect credit. And keep in mind, this payment doesn't even include insurance, it doesn't include maintenance, and it doesn't include gas. According to some quick research online, the average cost of car insurance for this Toyota is about $167 per month, and the same goes for fuel, so another $167, and the maintenance for the Toyota Highlander is $41 per month or $489 per year. That means the cost of insurance, fuel, and maintenance alone just for this new car at the average new car transaction price is $375 per month alone. If you were to add on that $898 that we were talking about for the monthly payment, then your total transportation cost of this car is $1,273 per month. Now, here's a table of incomes from $40,000 all the way up to $160,000 and how much of a car payment you can afford. This is based on the 24/10 rule, which says that you should not spend more than 10% of your monthly income on transportation. At the $40,000 range, you can see here that you can't even afford the $375 monthly that was your insurance, gas, and maintenance. You can, however, afford a total of $333 in transportation costs, which might not get you very far unless you already own a car outright. Now, if we go all the way down the income spectrum, you can see that we must be making close to $150,000 to $160,000 per year to even afford the Toyota Grand Highlander according to this rule. Every salary under that is technically out of this affordability range. So how many people actually make more than $150,000 per year? Well, we looked into the data, and in finding household income data, so not just individual, this is an entire household at this point, only 21% of households in America make more than $150,000. 21% actually seems pretty reasonable to me based on the rest of this video so far. However, that's a combined income of a household. So what percentile of income on an individual basis do you actually need? An Economic Policy Institute found that only the top 10% of individuals in America made more than $167,000 per year. So as you can see, to comfortably afford a new car and all the transportation costs, you actually need to be quite rich. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, man, like I don't even want to use the 24/10 rule. It's not that accurate. It's kind of outdated, whatever, so and so on. There is another personal finance rule called the 35% rule that you can use. This states that the most that you spend on a price of a car is not to exceed 35% of your gross income. So with the average new car price being $47,244, if we divide this by 35%, it means our gross income needs to be $134,983 using the 35% rule. So using this rule, you don't need to make $150K to $160K, but you gotta make around $130,000 per year. While that's not as high as the previous number, it's still $50,000 more than the average household income in America. And this unaffordability is now showing up in the data, so auto loan debt is at its highest ever, clocking in at $1.6 trillion in the United States. The average auto loan amount has now reached $40,366 for new vehicles and $26,685 for used vehicles in the fourth quarter of 2023, according to Experian. The other frightening statistic is that now auto loans account for 9.2% of American consumer debt in America, and that actually surpasses credit card debt and student loan debt as well. This has led to auto loan delinquency rates being quite high, so recent data released by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York show that car owners fell 1 month or more behind on their auto loan payments at an annualized rate of 7.7% in the fourth quarter of 2023, hitting a 13-year high. Car insurance prices aren't much better either. So personally, in my life, my SUV used to cost me $2,000 per year in insurance costs. And last year, as of 2023, that went up to $3,000 per year. The Labor Department has actually said that car insurance has been rising 20% year over year. And the reason, according to this Reader's article, is that, quote, factors such as the increasing cost for labor and parts to repair damaged vehicles and the overall rise in vehicle prices over the last several years has lifted the underlying collateral being insured. Declining demand from reinsurers is also a factor, he said, and natural disaster risk is probably contributing on the margin. It really just sounds like to me that car insurance rates want to jack up our rates overall across the board, inciting these factors as well as the most recent pandemic as the root issue. If you work in the car insurance business, I would love to hear from you guys down below in the comments as to why you think car insurance premiums are going up so much. Because the sad part about insurance is that there's just not a lot of substitutes for insurance itself. So oftentimes when they all raise prices, it's not like we can do that much about it. So what can you do about all this, especially if you want a car in the next 1, 2, or 3 years? Well, I have 3 tips for you. The first thing that you can do is to actually drive an electric vehicle, because right now they're pretty dang cheap. According to Autoblog, inventory for electric vehicles is starting to pile up. So, quote, the company found that new EV pricing fell by 8.2% since February 2023, noting a whopping 174% increase in available inventory. Higher EV inventory combined with the fact fact that some models will still qualify for that $7,500 federal tax credit means that you can probably score a really good deal on an electric car. And with used EVs, the news is even better because those are 20% cheaper than the year before as well. One thing that I do to benchmark the price of electric vehicles is usually just look at the Tesla Model 3 price for a new one, and right now they run about $35,000 to $40,000, but in the past they have like this kind of flexible pricing model that they use, and sometimes it can be a lot more expensive. So I know some people that bought a Tesla at the high and it was like $55,000 or $60,000, and now that it's a lot cheaper, it's like, well, Tesla's not going to give you a refund for that. Anyway, I'm just trying to make a point here, which is that electric vehicles, that could be a good idea for now. The second thing that you can do is to try to stay away from new cars in general and always buy a used car, perhaps a gently used car of around 3 or 4 years old. With most new cars, they depreciate like crazy in the first 2 to 3 years. You can see that the sweet spot here for a typical car depreciation curve is probably after about 3 to 4 years, because that's when most of the depreciation is gone. And oftentimes, guys, I think a 3-year used car will actually feel quite new. So I famously, or maybe infamously, bought a car that was about 4 years old, and these days people still think it's a new car because the model hasn't changed. That way, at least you're not losing a bunch of money to depreciation by just driving off a new car off the lot. My third tip here is to try to buy a car that is not expensive to maintain over time. So Edmunds.com has something called the true cost to own calculator, and sometimes more luxury cars will actually end up costing you a lot more in maintenance than just a plain and simple Toyota. Looking at this 2019 Audi Q5 versus this 2019 Toyota Highlander, you can see that the total cash price to own the Audi is actually much cheaper than the Toyota is. But the Audi actually ends up costing you $11,000 more than the Toyota does over 5 years because of maintenance, insurance, and repairs. If you are considering a luxury car, just really make sure that you can pay for the maintenance every month or every year, because it's going to be a little bit more, or in some cases a lot more, than your average Toyota or your average Hyundai. All right, so after watching this video, I hope that you now realize how bleak the car market is out there, and that to actually afford a new car, you actually need to make a top 10% income to do so. For most people, buying a used car, driving it into the ground, and hopefully not having a car payment is probably the best financial decision out there. Sometimes you might have a friend that has a luxury car and you're like, dude, I wish I was able to drive that car. How is he or she able to afford that? And sometimes I'm just gonna tell you guys, looks are deceiving. They could have it on credit. They could have a huge loan on that. Just don't let that kind of peer pressure get to you. If you're able to afford a new or used car under the 24/10 rule, I think you should be really proud of that. And even the 35% rule, I would say you should be proud of that as well. Hopefully you're using any excess cash to save and invest. I have a ton of videos on this channel talking right about that topic. And if you're more curious about why cars are the #1 wealth killer in America, you should check out my most popular video. I'll link it right here for you guys. And I hope to see you guys in that video because it's a great one, or I'll see you guys on the next video on the channel. All right, peace.